morning and welcome to Pike Liberal Arts School. I'm Mike Amos with Eric Burkett, the headmaster of Pike Liberal Arts School. And Eric, tell us what you got going. Arts School, and they had a big Christmas market this past week, and we hope that a lot of you were able to get out there and not only take advantage of some great sales and great bargains, you were able to mingle with some great people. I'm Mike Amos. He's Bill Rice Jr., and it's Today in L.A. You folks from around the world, I want you to know that you can be seen right now across the world on Facebook right now. How about that?
How many countries are there in the world? About
a lot of countries. But if you want to do it in
any country that has Facebook, we can be seen.
Exactly, no question about it. Of course, it is a Monday, and it is Rice. Give us quickly the countdown to Christmas. Today is the 9th, so give us a countdown.
16 days to Christmas, 15 shopping days left. How about that?
15 shopping days to Christmas. We want to make sure you shop Troy for Christmas.
And I haven't bought my first Christmas present, so I need all 15 of those.
Well, I tell you what, that's the great thing about buying for Christmas my house. Just give them a little cash or give them a credit card or whatever. You know
what we used to call them? We used to call them little flat boys. That's a check that's in an envelope.
Yeah.
My brother coined that phrase, little flat boys. Oh, a little flat boy.
I'm dressed in orange today, ladies and gentlemen, and I apologize about too much orange today. But we are having a great morning on a rainy morning. Did it surprise you that it rained like that?
Yeah.
You know, you wake up and you look out and say, gosh, I didn't know it was raining, you know.
I need it to dry up because I got to do something about all those leaves in my front yard.
That's right. But you know what?
I wish we could burn them in the big piles like they could.
Wouldn't that be wonderful? One day, let people burn it.
Now, what happened when you burned them? They just completely disappeared?
They completely disappeared.
Went up in the sky.
And the smell is just wonderful and everything. You know, let me tell you this. The leaves and the pine straw. I'd rather get rid of the pine straw maybe more than the leaves, because the pine straw really will cause a problem. But the leaves, I sort of like the leaves. You know, have you ever heard of kicking leaves, going out in the yard and kicking leaves, or walking in the woods and kicking leaves?
Yeah, they got a great sound to them, and kids love jumping in the piles.
Right. And that's why the fall of the year is such a wonderful time, you know. You know, the beach is great, but you got the beach year-round. You know, you're going to see the same ocean and the same beach. But the great thing about living in Troy, Alabama, you're going to see the foliage with the beautiful leaves and the cool air. And then the winter months where looks a little dreary, but at the same time you can put a log on the fire, you know, and have a big fire and sit back and what I call warmth. And then in the spring, those beautiful flowers, those dogwoods and those azaleas, and then summer, maybe those hot days. Now that can get to you a little bit, but give me the fall, the winter, and the spring, and I'm pretty happy. I'm not always happy with the summer, but at least one thing is good about the summer. It's only about a month left to go until football practice starts. So you can look at it any way you want to.
It goes quickly from spring to summer, though. It goes from, like you got those 2 or 3 weeks where the azaleas are so pretty, and the next thing you know, it's 94 degrees.
Of course.
So what did you say? May, you're going to have hot days. June, July, August, September, as we learned this year. Boy, we had 100 degrees in September. So you got about 5 months of really hot weather.
Right. And of course, I was downtown last night. I went to see the First Baptist Church's living Christmas tree. Oh, what a tradition! Great. Let me just say this.
All right.
In Troy, Alabama, last night at the First Baptist Church. Of course, it is a gorgeous church, but people don't even realize how gorgeous it is until they see it in daylight.
Yeah.
And at night, it's still a beautiful place. With those rafters in that church, you probably could not find those rafters anywhere else in the country.
Beautiful.
But they put on their annual, or well, every 2 or 3 years, they Excuse me, you're on Today in L.A. How you doing?
Hi, morning.
I'm in the middle of a conversation. Hold on one second. But last night, the living Christmas tree was as beautiful as you could ever see.
So they don't do it every year?
No, they don't do it every year.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why in a minute. But the living Christmas tree was just outstanding. And I don't know if there was a better production in these United States of America.
Right.
I'm telling you now, than right here in Troy, Alabama, and the music director at Troy First Baptist Church was had to be elated with the performance of his cast. And my brother Joel is in the choir, and my sister-in-law Linda. And when I got home, I said to my wife, I said, you know, Joel and Linda have been a part of a magnificent machine for 30 years.
Yeah.
You know, singing in the choir at the First Baptist Church, you know, for 30 years. I mean,
awesome.
what a great team. What a great.
So he and his wife are both in the choir together.
Oh yeah. And my 74-year-old brother was one of the main cast guys sitting up front. You know,
awesome.
In that living Christmas tree, there's probably 50, at least 50,
wow,
maybe more. And then at the top of the tree was one of the unbelievable sopranos of all time. And I want to say it was.
Now, are they done, or was that the last performance?
Yeah, it was the last performance. They had a performance at noon yesterday, and then last night, and they were just outstanding. And I just can't get enough of it to talk about it. And people from all over the community were there, and it was just simply wonderful. But Mike, would you ever thought that your Uncle Joel and your Aunt Linda would have been a part of such a great team, or what would you call it, ensemble?
Yeah, an ensemble
of choir in the country, and they have enjoyed all of that for a long time. Of course, can still enjoy it. They're 74 years old.
Well, where did they get their singing voice?
I always thought Uncle Joel was known for being Marty Schottenheimer.
Yeah. Well, let me just say this. He and his wife, Linda, have been very active in the First Baptist Church.
Joel Amos can out-sing you, Dad?
I don't know if he can. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
He can out-sing you. But
hey,
you can out-sing me, though, so I'm not one to
The
talk.
only thing they didn't sing...
I mean, growing up, did Joel sing a lot?
No, he didn't. Not much at all. But let me just say this.
He was always a quiet guy to me.
Yeah. You know, I've seen the living Christmas tree many times, and it usually comes around every 2 or 3 years, usually about every 3 years. Let me tell you about this, and I don't mean to embarrass them this morning by any means, but do you know how First Baptist got that living Christmas tree?
Mm-hmm. Tell me.
Dr. Eakes.
Okay.
Dr. Eakes and his wife donated the living Christmas tree to the First Baptist Church of Troy years ago. This has been going on 20 years or more, and what a wonderful, wonderful thing they did. And the lighting and the professionalism.
The production.
Troy Cable was there. I mean, not as a Troy Cable, but they were hired out. A lot of our staff people were hired out for this production, and there was a monitor that you could look at and read the words to everything they did. But they had about 10 of those monitors all over the church. It was so professionally and well done. You know, it's pitiful. And I'm just bragging, and I'm gonna take off one of these this morning. Good morning.
And so they do it every 2 or 3 years just because it's such a big production, and they don't want to wear themselves out.
That's right. See, they used to put it in the activities building, and you know, you've been in that building before. You know, it was a big building, but recently they put it in the church, because the church roof is so high. You know, those rafters are real high, and see this living Christmas tree. Gosh, it's 25 feet high or more. You know, maybe more than that. And the people at the top. Only thing that I missed this year from the singer at the top, and you know who sings this song better than anybody, and you'll be able to hear her this Friday night, is the voice of Troy, Alabama. You know who that is, don't you?
Sheila Jackson.
Sheila Jackson, and Sheila had been at the top of that tree before, and she sang, "Oh, ho." night.
Ooh, I bet you can
The stars are brightly shining. That's my favorite Christmas song.
Yeah.
Oh, holy night. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back.
Sheila's awesome. But there's a lot of talent.
They're running around up there today, so we're not going on break. If this was Neil and Wally, somebody be told off. If this was Neil and Wally.
Well, I wanted to add a story about.
Today in LA history.
I want to talk
what did you
about
say?
the shortest break.
So that's the earliest break in Troy.
Well, we're not making it. We're still on the air, evidently. We're still on the air, and we're going to talk about Bill Jackson Chevrolet Ford on the bypass right here in Troy, and appreciate all that he's done for our community. And of course,
how did his team do in the state finals?
His team won.
They won it all.
Yeah,
Hey, good deal.
they won it all, and I was supposed to have all that information on me today.
Tons of coaching changes. It's unbelievable what's going on in college football.
All right, we're going to have a great time this morning. And, I tell you what, Mike, we should have thought that he would be the greatest candidate for the Ole Miss job anyway. And tell us about it.
Well, I mean, huge news out of Appalachian State. Eli Drinkerwich is one and done. He's going to Missouri.
Did he really? Drinkerwich?
Appalachian State will be, looking for a new football coach, which is good for Troy. And then, it's crazy how everything happens. Norval ends up leaving Memphis to go to Florida State, which I think is a great hire.
Oh, yeah, great hire.
But then, Kiffin, absolutely just destroys UAB. Clark.
Just killed him. You're right, just killed him.
One of the more embarrassing losses, I guess, maybe in Clark's career, I think is what I read.
Did he lose the job out of the deal or what?
Well, he got beat 49-6, but UAB is playing Appalachian State in the New Orleans Bowl, so good for UAB. But I don't know if Drinkwich will coach. I guess Clark will probably stay now because he was in the mix at Ole Miss. But crazy story out of Arkansas. They're hiring Sam Pittman, who's like this career journeyman coach in the SEC.
Oh, gosh.
Was in Georgia's offensive line coach.
I've never heard of him.
Had been in Arkansas as their offensive line coach. Never had a head coaching job except junior college. The guy's 59 years old. He's been at probably like 12 different schools and is now the new head coach at Arkansas.
Golly, and never been a head coach.
Never been a head coach except junior college, like in his early 20s.
Oh, mate.
So, crazy. I guess Arkansas, nobody wanted that job is what that proves. Maybe they're looking at what Ed Orgeron's done at LSU.
And where did this guy...
He was at Georgia. He was offensive.
He was at Georgia, offensive line coach.
Yeah, okay.
This guy in the head coach job at the SEC is bizarro world.
Yeah.
So, I know he's a good recruiter, but just very strange situation. But I tell you what, man, Kirby Smart in Georgia. I know LSU's good, but they'll have to go back to that first series of the game. Well, they missed 3 or 4 guys just wide open. One guy for a touchdown. Jake Fromm got exposed.
Mike, did you have the thought I had that...
If there's any question he's coming back, he is definitely...
I'll fit to say he might not even be drafted.
Yeah. But, Mike, my point was, Jake Fromm plays lights out when he plays Alabama. he doesn't miss a pass.
Yeah.
Then he plays LSU, and he looks like a third-string quarterback. It's just...
Well, Lane Kiffin...
LSU kicked a lot of field goals in that game. If LSU would have scored touchdowns, they'd put 60 on Georgia.
Yeah. Of course, Lane Kiffin gets the Ole Miss job, and he's a perfect guy for that job, Mike. He's laid back. He's
Laid back. He's all about social media.
I know. Well, what I'm saying, the Ole Miss people will love him. But he's not a holler and a screamer. He's sort of a laid back guy.
Ole Miss co-eds will love him. He'll be out and about every night.
Yeah.
Co-eds.
He's man got a family, doesn't he? Doesn't he have I know he's got a son.
He's divorced.
Oh, is he? You hear that, Ole Miss girls?
Watch out.
He's a good-looking guy. He's a sharp guy, no question about it. All right, Mike, let's get started with him. Not national.
I was shocked though when I turned on saw Wisconsin up 21-7. I mean, I never saw that one coming.
But I watched that game, and let me tell you this. The great player on that team is that running back for Ohio State. He is a good football player.
Yeah, Dobbins.
Yeah, boy, he is good. I think he got close to 200-yard rushing, I think.
Well, let me interject before we get started on how about that powerful Utah team that everybody on ESPN wanted in the playoffs?
Yeah, what happened finally on that?
They got blown out by Oregon.
Yeah, I know it, by Oregon. And
so everybody was pushing. First, they were pushing Oregon for the playoffs, and then they laid an egg against Arizona State. Then they started pushing Utah, and then they laid an egg against Oregon. You know, all I guess trying to get a Pac-12 team. And they said it was for TV rating purposes, I think. But you check the ratings of that Oregon Utah game and compare it to the Alabama Auburn game. There's no interest in college football out there. I mean, compare it to here.
Baylor almost beats Oklahoma with a third-string quarterback. Goes to overtime. So I'll tell you how good Oklahoma is.
I know it. You're right. You're exactly right.
Oklahoma just got so lucky to get into this thing. I mean, they really did. I mean, the Big 12. I think Oklahoma will be exposed. I mean, I know Jalen Hurts' story's great, and every Alabama fan I've seen on Facebook, you know, that's their new team is cheering for Jalen in Oklahoma, but Oklahoma's in big time trouble against LSU.
Yeah, they'll beat them 3 or 4 touchdowns, I would say. But I've been hurt. I told you. Did I tell you that was going to happen?
Yeah, I think you did.
Oh, over and over. I want to mention.
And Orgeron, when they do all these, you know, they'll do behind the scenes, they'll do all these stories and stuff like that. I mean, they've got to start some story with Troy beating Orgeron and LSU and, like, manhandle them at the line of scrimmage. I mean, Troy ran up and down the field on them. I mean, that's got to be one of the storylines. That had to be rock bottom. And then, you know, here he is undefeated with Joe Burrow and Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, and this guy's going to probably win the national championship.
I hate to say this, but for years and years I've said if LSU had a quarterback, they'd be good. And well, you know what? They've got a quarterback, and they're very good.
And they got the right offense, too.
You look at all the great teams. How many teams are out there that are winning without a good quarterback? Not many.
That's right.
You know what this reminds me of, and I thought about it this weekend? Very similar to Auburn's national championship year in 2010. You had an unbelievable, once-in-a-lifetime quarterback in Cam Newton, and then you had the unbelievable play call offense coordinator who was new and fresh to the scene in Gus Malzahn. This is kind of what this reminds me of.
Yeah. You know, the team that had the biggest turnaround this year has to be Tennessee. You know, Tennessee started off, everybody was just, you know, the coach was going to lose his job, and, you know, they were just terrible. And now, look at what they've done.
Well, they're 7-5. Maybe if they're like 9-3, I would say that. But I mean, at least they can go to a bowl now.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, we got to start. We got to have a party sometimes after the first of the year.
I've got all the bowl games. So just let me know what you want to hear.
I'm looking at them too, and of course we're excited about it. Of course, it's Christmas, and a lot of things are going on because it's Christmas time. And like I was talking about before before you came on the air, Mike, was the beautiful living Christmas tree that last night at the First Baptist Church. It was really a great event, and of course there's a lot of other programs coming up. Sheila's program's coming up. Sheila and Friends coming up this Friday night, which is going to be a fabulous show. And as it always, Sheila starts off with all her friends singing her favorite songs, and then the second half is all Christmas, and it is beautiful. All the great Christmas songs, and
that's a great idea.
It's going to be another wonderful event. And this is part of the Troy Arts Council, you know, putting this on, and
good for them.
And they do a great job, no question about it.
I want to put in a plug for the First Methodist Choir. My wife just joined that choir. So
okay, yeah.
I'm the world's worst singer, and
is Tom Murphy still in that choir?
Tom Murphy's in it,
yeah, exactly. I'm gonna take off my
Robin
orange.
Sullivan and Muriel Saunders, and
I like Muriel. She's very active in that church.
they let Carrie join several weeks ago, and they had a nice Christmas performance at services yesterday. Put a lot of work into that one, and had some live orchestra that came. It was really good.
All right, wait a minute.
I'm shocked if you look at the playoff rankings, the final rankings. Like, how in the world could Alabama have been number 5 the whole time, and then they lose a heartbreaking game on the road at Auburn by 3 points, where you miss a 30-yard field goal with 2 minutes left. You're possibly going to overtime. I mean,
that game was so much like the quick six. It was so much like it. It was pitiful.
I mean,
the kick six.
All the way to 13 in the playoff rankings, where they're 10-2. Auburn's 9-3, but Auburn's ahead of Alabama, I guess, because of the win.
Yeah.
But I really think Alabama fans would have been absolutely furious today, because I don't think Alabama would have been at the playoffs.
I think they were headed out for them. I've come to that conclusion.
I think Oklahoma would have jumped Alabama, and Alabama would have been 5th, because they make such importance on who you beat that was ranked. And Alabama only beat one ranked team all season in Texas A&M, and that was it.
Yeah, you're right, Mike.
There is no way that Alabama is the 13th best team when they lose to the number 1 team in a game that they easily could have won, and then they lose at Auburn, the very good team where they had multiple chances to win that game with a backup quarterback. That just tells you, I mean, that there's no way that Wisconsin is better than Alabama or Minnesota or Baylor.
With Tua, Alabama would have won a national championship this year. I really believe they would have, because they were just downright outscored folks with Tua. But you gotta hand it to I mean, these teams are all great teams. LSU, of course, Clemson, and Ohio State.
How in the world did Georgia stay at number 5 in the playoff committee? I mean, they just got blown out by LSU.
They're number 5?
Yeah, they stayed number 5.
So explain Alabama.
That's how much they disrespected the Pac-12. Oregon was number 6, and they won the Pac-12 championship. And a Georgia team that got blown out by LSU stayed number 5.
Well, how are Oregon and Utah ahead of Alabama?
I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things. Utah beat absolutely nobody. That's what ESPN was saying. They didn't beat a ranked team all season.
And then they got blown out by Oregon, and then Oregon got beat by 6-loss Arizona State.
Alabama's not even in a New Year's 6 bowl game. Penn State is going to the Cotton Bowl instead of Alabama or Auburn.
Well, I'm an Alabama fan, but what's their old saying? You're not really paranoid if they really are out to get you. It looks like they really are out.
They were out to get him, I think, no question about it. And
I mean, Michigan. And don't get me wrong, Michigan Alabama will be a good game, but if Najee Harris doesn't play, Jerry G doesn't play, Henry Ruggs doesn't play, Terrell Lewis on defense doesn't play. I mean, a couple other guys won't play. I mean, Alabama's going to have their hands full, because Michigan, until they got blown out by Ohio State, was one of the better teams in the country, I thought.
I'd be stunned.
They beat Notre Dame by 40 that night. I was like, man, they look pretty good.
I'd be stunned if Alabama wins that game. I mean, that just
Notre Dame was ranked higher than Alabama, wasn't it?
I don't believe they were.
Well, I'm looking
at the final rankings.
I'm looking for the final rankings in the advertiser today. It's probably the thinnest advertiser I think I've ever seen, but it doesn't even give the actual rankings.
I'll make a prediction on the advertiser. It will quit being a daily paper within a year or two. I bet.
But you look down this and you look at Alabama. They lose 46-41 to LSU and lose 48-45 to Auburn. But you look down this, how many teams that are in these bowl games would have been predicted higher than Alabama as far as, Alabama would have been a favorite against most everybody except maybe for Clemson, maybe for LSU, definitely, and Ohio State.
I think you're right. I think everybody else.
Only 3 teams would have actually been rated. Would have been
favored over
Alabama.
And that includes Auburn. If Alabama played Auburn again in a neutral field, Alabama would be favored.
Oh yeah, no question. And if Tua would have played, they would have been right in there for a national championship, I'm sure.
But I think Michael's right. I think this committee was not going to give it to Alabama. I mean, you look at just Utah and Oregon being so much ahead of Alabama after what they did at the end of the year. That's your tell right there. That's revealing.
No question about it. This show is brought to you by Dixieland Dental, located 9 miles north of Dothan on Highway 231. Dr. Michael Precise, Dr. John Strength, Dr. Damon Strength, and Dr. Robert Precise make up one of the largest.
There it is.
There's the living Christmas tree. Part of it, that's my brother Joel. If you move over just a little bit, we'll see my brother Joel on that first row. But of course, that's part of of that wonderful program. I hope we'll run it on Troy Cable this week because it is such a beautiful sight. And of course, that's just part of the living Christmas tree at the First Baptist Church last night. Our guy Scott was there. I was sitting right in front of him, didn't realize it the whole time, and he was the camera guy right behind me.
I went to the square Saturday morning to get pictures for our kids with Santa Claus. And
was that a city function? Or
I think so, or a chamber function.
Was it nice?
Yeah, great. They've got Santa's sleigh and then Santa's big chair and that pretty Christmas tree. Kids loved it. There was a good turnout. Then somebody was having a book reading that hadn't started when we were there, so there were a lot of people. But I was impressed by Scott, doing live coverage of these events and tape coverage. That just shows you Troy Cable.
And then right there, gray-headed guy right there in the middle, right above that mannequin right there is my brother Joel Amos, who's been a part of that choir for 30 years at least. He was at Calvary before he was at First Baptist, but what a wonderful choir that is, and the guy that runs it is just one of the best in the country.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Really
congratulations to everybody.
Here's the final polls. The playoff poll, of course, has LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, Oklahoma. After that, they chose Georgia, which is shocking.
What, 5th in the country?
5th in the country, yeah. Oregon is 6th. Baylor, who's 11-2.
And Georgia lost 2 games. They lost 2 games, and they were ranked number 5.
Got blown out by LSU.
They lost to South Carolina and lost to LSU.
Yeah, they would shiver if they knew they had to play Alabama, wouldn't they?
Yeah, how about take them?
And then you got Baylor, who's going to play Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. I'll tell you what, Georgia better get up for Baylor because Baylor's coach is a great coach. You'll have them ready. Wisconsin loses 3 games. They finish 8th at 10-3. Florida, who had a great season, 10-2. They're 9th. Penn State is 10-2. They're 10th. Utah, for some crazy reason, 11-2 and no ranked wins, is 11th. Auburn is ahead of Alabama, 9-3 at 12. Alabama is 13. Michigan, who Alabama plays in the bowl game, is 14. Notre Dame is 15. And then the rest of your poll is Iowa, 16. Memphis, 17. Minnesota, 18th. That's who Auburn's going to play in the bowl game. 19th. Appalachian State, 20th. And then rounding out, Cincinnati, 21st. USC, 22nd. Navy, 23rd. Virginia, 24th. I don't even know how you rank Virginia. They finished 9-4 and got blown out by Clemson. And then you got Oklahoma State 8-4. Now in the AP poll, Auburn and Alabama are tied at 9th.
That's better.
AP poll is.
The discrepancy is, listen to this, the coaches poll. The coaches poll has Alabama 9th, Auburn 13th.
Oh yeah, that's regular.
Very different in the coaches poll.
And that's the coaches poll, or and of course. Then the AP poll with the coaches was 9th also, is that
Alabama
right?
and Auburn tied at 9th.
Yeah.
But I mean, the discrepancy is in the coaches poll, Alabama's 9th, Auburn is down at 13th.
Let me tell you, and how about the bowl games? They've got Alabama and Auburn all playing on New Year's Day at 1 o'clock, both of them. They're playing head up against each other.
Isn't that awful? Yeah,
it'll tickle me.
One's on ABC.
I'll guarantee you Auburn will have a higher percentage of fans watching their game. What do you think?
How's that? Alabama will be on ABC where you can still watch it with a HDN.
Oh, I wasn't thinking about that.
Alabama and Michigan, that's 2 blue bloods of the sport. I'll tell you what, all-time wins, Alabama only trails Michigan in the history of college football.
Yeah, but Did Michigan start their program like 10 years before Alabama?
About 6 years before Alabama, and also they didn't. They played during World War I and World War II, where Alabama missed 2 seasons. But still, Michigan has about 20 more victories than Alabama on the field. I don't count all these thrown out victories that Alabama had.
On Wednesday, January 1st, the Citrus
that's
Bowl.
Important. That's significant.
The Citrus Bowl out of Orlando. This will be easy for Alabama guys to get to. That's another thing good about it. And Alabama will be playing Michigan at 12 o'clock noon on January the 1st. And at the same time, the Outback Bowl, which is located about 50 miles or 60 miles from Orlando and Tampa, the Outback Bowl, features Minnesota, the Golden Gophers against Auburn 9-3. Minnesota 10-2, Auburn 9-3. They both play at noon on January the 1st. That is not good, I don't think, for Alabama Auburn fans because when you love to watch both of those games, now you can only watch one of them, really, unless you go back and forth.
I want to see how many Alabama players are not going to play, and when will they announce that? How will they? And I guess they're not. If you're not going to play, you need to go ahead and say it, so you don't need to practice. Let the young kids practice. So I guess Saban's trying to recruit and get as many of them as he can to say they'll play the game.
Yeah. The Rose Bowl has, in the granddaddy of them all, as they used to say, has Oregon 11-2 against Wisconsin 10-3, and then Georgia 11-2. This is the Sugar Bowl. This is at 7:45 Georgia, and that's a highlight bowl. It's got Georgia and Baylor in it. To me, that Sugar Bowl, it's at night, and probably the top game of the day.
You watch it. That Superdome seats 77,000. What would you say they'll have at Georgia Baylor? They'll have 55,000.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
Well, I'll tell you what, that Superdome had a great game in it yesterday. The 49ers came back and beat the Saints. What was it, 48-46?
Golly, I didn't see that. That was something.
48-46.
48-46. And I was looking at the New Orleans threw for 400 and wait a minute, that's net yards. Passing, both of them threw for 350 yards. Talking about the Saints and the 49ers. The Saints were at halftime. The score was 28-27. That's a pretty good game, wasn't it?
Sounds like the Alabama-Auburn game.
At the half, no question about it. But I didn't even watch much pro ball yesterday. But taking a look at all the bowl games, Mike, let's do that right now. Buffalo and Charlotte in the Nassau Bowl. That'd be fun to go to. The Bahama Bowl is located in Nassau. And Charlotte is a new college football team, 7-5 against Buffalo, 7-5. Utah State, 7-5 against Kent State. Can you believe Kent State made a bowl game?
No, I can't.
The Frisco Bowl from Texas. And then on Saturday, the 21st is the big day. You got North Carolina A&T 8-3 against Alcorn. Then the next game will pit New Mexico in the New Mexico Bowl. It will pit Central Michigan 8-5 against San Diego State 9-3.
Yeah, Central Michigan really surprised me. A lot of people thought McElwain was going to get the Missouri job, and I guess he ended up not getting it. But Central Michigan got beat by a 7-5 Miami of Ohio team in the championship game.
That's right. Okay, all right. Here's a big the one I've been looking for. We're going to talk to Johnny Williams this week, right here at the bowl game, the Camellia Bowl in Montgomery. It's Florida International versus Arkansas State. I don't know. I don't know much about who's going to bring the fans.
Florida International won't bring hardly anybody.
Florida International is coached by Butch Davis, and they beat Miami this year.
Yeah. And Johnny Williams, who is probably the best promoter in the country, if he can pull off a good crowd here, he's done a whale of a job because
it's a good matchup, though.
Well, I don't know.
Arkansas State's a perennial power in the Sun Belt, they got the quarterback that used to be at Alabama. That was the fifth-string quarterback at Alabama.
Right. But what I'm saying is,
the Sun Belt Freshman of the Year.
This is a long drive for either one of those teams, though, and
I'm going to look at the attendance at all these bowl games.
This tells you that Florida International was bowl eligible, but apparently the MAC didn't have enough bowl eligible teams. Because this is supposed to be the MAC against the Sun Belt.
That's right. No question about it. Also, the Boca Raton Bowl, that'd be a nice bowl. Has Southern Methodist 10-2 against Florida Atlantic 10-3. I wonder if Kiffin will coach that game. I wouldn't think he would. Would you?
I would doubt it. I would imagine he's gone.
So that's like this is one of these teams that goes to a bowl game in their own stadium in their own town.
And I'm gonna tell you who's a good football coach. That we put Max Howell on here, and he just doesn't like him. But Liberty 7-5 versus Georgia Southern 7-5. Of course, Georgia Southern played well toward the end, and of course that'll be hard to beat. But Liberty and their coach, Mike, pretty good football team.
Yeah, I mean, Hugh Freeze starts the season with all kinds of back issues. Is coaching in the press box on like an actual cot, gurney or something like that. I mean, the guy could not even lift his back, and then I think another game was like in a wheelchair on the sidelines or something.
Exactly.
They get to the bowl game at 7-5 was incredible, and then kudos to Georgia Southern. They started the season off really slow, but they made a bowl game. Whether you like it or not, they played that quarterback that was arrested. That Lunsford guy.
They could call it the Cocaine Bowl, couldn't they?
I will say that I am impressed though of Troy. They have beaten Georgia Southern now 3 years in a row, which is big for Troy.
Exactly.
So that's one good thing that Troy accomplished this year.
What we're talking about on this Cure Bowl, and I apologize about that. The Liberty Bowl and Georgia Southern, that first of the year, their quarterback was arrested.
No, we talked about it, yeah.
And
he said it was bird poop on the windshield.
Charges, yeah.
And it ended up bringing him back. And, of course, they probably wouldn't even won half their games if he hadn't come back. But,
Shea Works is a really good athletic.
But we got to let everybody know.
Game.
Let me tell you this. Football wins don't mean anything as far as integrity goes. And I think this was a lack of integrity on the part of a team letting a kid play that was found guilty, I reckon, wasn't he?
No.
I mean, they dropped the charges.
Well, they dropped the charges.
They had no choice.
Okay. And, of course, I won't talk any more about that. Boise State and Washington play 7-5. Boise State's 12-1. Who'll win that game? It's the Las Vegas Bowl.
I mean, it's Chris Peterson's last game as Washington's coach. He's, apparently had a lot of issues this season. As far as it's one of the toughest seasons as a coach. He said that he's ever experienced, and kind of wants to take a break from football. And guy's an incredible coach, and he's going against Brian Hartson, who played for him at Boise State.
That's right. Yeah.
And won. So you got 12-1 Boise State against a 7-5 Washington. It should be interesting in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I like Boise State to upset them. Now New Orleans Bowl.
Third string quarterback right now.
Yeah. Now New Orleans Bowl, and of course UAB got walloped at the end of the year, but they're 9-4 against Appalachian State 12-1. Appalachian State has a good football team, but they'll be playing without the head coach. Is that right, Mike?
Well, Drinkerwich is going to be the new coach of Missouri. I don't know if he'll coach the bowl or what. I don't know how that's going to work out. But I will say this: I turned on the Appalachian State game, and I think they were up 42-17. The final score of that game was 45-38.
So UAB scored a bunch of points down at the end. Then is that right?
Louisiana Lafayette.
Louisiana Lafayette.
Oh, Lafayette. I mean.
Yeah, I watched some of it because I had a little fun wager on it, and Lafayette came 1 point from covering, but Louisiana Lafayette had 2 turnovers in the first half that led to Appalachian State touchdowns, and so there you have it. They ended up losing by 7, and so I thought it would be a close game, and it ended up being a close game.
No question about it.
If Troy could ever get that game, that is huge to have a championship game on your home field.
Oh, I know it. It sure is. And but that's a great thing for UAB fans. Can go to New Orleans. And
well,
have
who's
a good
going to
time.
hire the Louisiana Lafayette coach? Don't we think that isn't he one of the guys that's being talked about?
Well, Jeff Scott, the offense coordinator at Clemson, so they're finally going to lose an assistant coach. Jeff Scott, the offense coordinator, co-offense coordinator, is going to South Florida. A lot of people said Napier would go take the Memphis job. I don't think people realize that Memphis, for all that FedEx money, they paid Mike Norvell $2.6 million.
Gosh, I didn't realize it. So they had a buyout. They had a buyout too, didn't they? So that means Florida State had to buy them out.
I don't know how much of a buyout it was, but I know that Napier is the highest paid coach, they said, in the Sun Belt, making $875,000 a year. So that'd be a big jump. Yeah,
I know it. Of course, on Monday, December 23rd, you've got the Gasparilla Bowl, whatever that is, at Tampa, Central Florida, 9-3 against Marshall, 8-4. Tuesday, December the 24th, this is a a Christmas Eve game. BYU 7-5. What are the Tabernacle Singers going to do, Mike? They always on the air on New Year's Eve. Christmas Eve against Hawaii, 9-5.
Mormon Tabernacle Choir.
Yeah, they're usually on TV on Christmas Eve. Great group. But that game be at 7 p.m. on Christmas Eve. Boy, that's right at Christmas, isn't it? And then the other games, and then the big New Year's, the day after Christmas, we'll pit the Independence Bowl in Shreveport. Miami 6-6 against Louisiana Tech, 9-3. Louisiana Tech is located right there in Shreveport. That's like a home game for them. Detroit, in Detroit, you got the Quick Lane Bowl. Pittsburgh 7-5 against Eastern Michigan. A lot of people be watching that game, I'm sure. The Military Bowl.
Were you being facetious?
I'm being facetious. The Annapolis, Maryland. I'll tell you one thing about this game. The game's played on Friday, December 22nd. It's the Military Bowl, featured in North Carolina 6-6 and Temple 8-4. That's going to be the coldest of all those bowl games. Mike, they're playing right there in Annapolis, where Naval Academy is located. And if you've ever been there, it's a huge. It's like the part of the country opened up and made a huge harbor in there, and that cold air comes into that harbor, and it is unbearable, I tell you.
Yeah.
And
speaking of Navy, I'm close to Pensacola, and of course that horrible shooting on the base down in Pensacola. Our thoughts and prayers go out to all those families and loved ones. I know a couple of the people there were, unfortunately, that were killed were from Alabama. So horrible tragedy at the military base. Thank goodness the responders, got there in time, and it wasn't as worse as it could have been. That was awful to hear about Friday.
Those shooters were Saudi Arabian.
Do you think he came here to do that, or do you think he decided he wanted to do it after he got here?
I mean, it was definitely a terrorist attack. Now, when he, started feeling that way, I'm not sure. It might have been the whole time. But
we're training these guys as pilots.
I know one thing. Saudi Arabia better be funding all these victims' families a lot of money for the rest of their lives.
That was the point I was getting ready to make. Is why don't we go after all these countries for supporting terrorism? And Saudi Arabia is worse than any of them. Most of the 911 hijackers and terrorists were from Saudi Arabia. That never gets mentioned.
Yeah.
And then you've got their prince of Saudi Arabia that is alleged to have ordered the murder of a columnist and journalist. And they still haven't found his body. They cut him up alive. And this is our great friend and ally, Saudi Arabia. I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Well, you're exactly right. It's a bad situation. Let's finish these bowl games. The Pinstripe Bowl from New York. This is games played in the Yankee Stadium.
Well, that'll be cold. That might be colder than the Maryland game.
That's right. It'll be cold. Wake Forest against Michigan State. Michigan State had a terrible year in comparison with their teams for several years back.
That would be your dream bowl game, Dad. You're such a huge Yankees fan.
That's right. Go see it. Exactly. The Texas Bowl in Houston pits Oklahoma State 8-4 against Texas A&M 7-5. Boy, Texas A&M, you talk about a tough schedule. Look down their schedule, Mike. They played a real tough schedule, like Auburn did. The holiday.
One thing about A&M, you talk about Clemson. They played Clemson at Clemson. I think they got beat by 14 points. So that's one of those type things where you got to look at Clemson. They almost got beat by North Carolina. A&M played them pretty tough, but after that, they just blew out everybody they played. I mean, Dabo Swinney, I don't know if you watched any of that Virginia game. I just flipped over there for no reason, really, because I was just wanting to watch football. But, I mean, he was throwing the ball. Well, his backup quarterback, he had his son in there.
Had his what in there? He had his what in there?
Receiver. His son, Dabo Swinney's son, is a wide receiver.
I did not know that. Did you know that?
Yeah,
he was throwing to his son.
I did not know that he was.
In that game, I mean, they were like just trying to humiliate Virginia. It was awful.
Well, they had Dabo's son in there. They couldn't.
Yeah. And one of his sons, he'd raised a bunch of money for one of his sons, and
his son is also the holder.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Looking at some other games.
Talking about Clemson, though, they have their starting safety is Kevin Turner's son.
Really?
And he has had a great career at Clemson.
I did not know that, but I'm
had an interception the other night against Virginia.
His daddy might have been.
It probably influenced him getting that scholarship. I remember when Dabo gave Kevin's son that scholarship. He played high school football in Birmingham.
And I'll tell you this.
And I thought, well, he's just doing this as a favor. Well, it turns out the young man is quite a good football player, and it's another one that you say, why didn't Alabama didn't even offer him? I don't think.
Well, I'll tell you this: Kevin Turner was probably one of the toughest people to ever play at Alabama. He was a hard-nosed rascal, I tell you, out of Prattville. Iowa and Southern Cal. This sounds like a fairly good game in the Holiday Bowl in San Diego. That's supposed to be a high-scoring bowl, doesn't it, Mike? They always play that at night.
USC can score, and Iowa plays at a snail's pace. It's a real interesting matchup.
Yeah, exactly. Air Force and.
I'll go ahead and say I think USC will outscore Iowa.
Yeah. I didn't realize it until I looked at this. This is the Cheez-Ix Bowl. I like Cheez-Ix. Air Force 10-2. Did you realize that? Versus Washington State 6-6. The key is Air Force better keep the ball away from Washington State. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I like Golden Flake cheese curls. Those have always been my favorite. I'm a Golden Flake guy.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I got you.
I've spent a lot of money with cheese.
Coach Bryant liked Golden Flake a lot. Okay, Saturday, December the 28th is the Camping World Bowl. How many bowls are out there?
This right here will be a good game.
Notre Dame 10-2 and Iowa State 7-5. You're right, it will be a good one. Notre Dame, I thought, played real well at the end of the year. They pretty good football team.
Yeah, after they got destroyed by Michigan, they turned it around.
Yeah. Okay, Cotton Bowl Classic out of Arlington, Texas. Penn State 10-2 against Memphis 12-1. Wouldn't you love to see Memphis just wear them out?
Yeah.
I mean, if Norval's not going to coach, I don't see it. I mean, Penn State, they just re-signed James Franklin, I think a 6-year contract extension. I mean, Penn State, they're one of the few teams that gave Ohio State a decent game. I think Penn State will probably handle Memphis.
Okay, the Peach Bowl from Atlanta, and that is always a good one. That game's also on the 28th of December. This is a late game. Pitt's LSU, of course, against Oklahoma 12-1. That's a 3 o'clock game.
Start of the playoffs. So this is your playoff matchup starting now.
And of course, your Peach Bowl out of Atlanta ought to be a good one. But LSU, I think, just way too much.
LSU will be favored by 17, 14, 14-17.
But now one thing about it, Oklahoma.
Jalen Hurts, it's an amazing story. We'll play LSU again. For the 4th straight year. I guess of course, playing in Alabama, you play them, that's your rival. But I can't imagine that Jalen Hurts has ever seen an LSU team even close to this. I mean, this their defense is starting to play lights out right now too.
Yeah, you're right. The Fiesta Bowl from Glendale, Arizona, is also part of the championship series. Ohio State 13-0 against Clemson 13-0.
And I bet I'm gonna go ahead and bet. I bet Clemson's favored. Watch and see.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't doubt it.
I tell you what, Clemson's the scariest team of them all in this to me.
What about what team's gonna show up or what?
Yeah, I think they're the team that can still win it all. I think people are not showing them any respect. They've won 28 games in a row.
That's what I'm saying. Do you know that they're going to come close to breaking Oklahoma's record? Oklahoma won what, 50 something straight? How many they win at one time? I know Bear Bryant's Kentucky team
beat them.
I think Bear Bryant's Kentucky team beat them.
I think Bud Wilkinson won like 57 straight.
Find out if you will.
I think it's 55.
That would be fun to talk about.
Clemson though is a team though that until somebody beats them, it's really kind of hard for me to pick against them. They played Ohio State a couple times in the playoffs and just have blown them out.
Well, let me tell you this. There's no question how much I like their coach. He's probably the finest guy in coaching college football today. And he is a genuine person. He's from out here in Birmingham. What's the name of that little old school out there Tyler Watson played at? Pelham. He's from right out here at Pelham. And was a wide receiver at Alabama. Didn't play a real lot, I don't think.
He played a fair amount.
Well, of course.
He was a blocking wide receiver.
Yeah.
He had eight career catches at Alabama.
8 career catches, so he didn't really play a lot at Alabama. But let me tell you this: when he went, was he under Coach Bryant or was he under Coach
Stallings?
Stallings. Do you know who he coached later on was a guy right here in Troy, Allen. He coached. Wes Allen. And they became real good friends. Wes Allen and him are very good friends. I want to mention on Monday, December the 30th, you've got Western Kentucky 8-4 against Western Michigan 7-5. The Music City. Now, a lot of people wanted to go to this one. Now, this is a fun bowl game, the Music City Bowl, from Nashville. And it's got Mississippi State going there in 6-6 against Louisville 7-5, and the former App State coach Mike's the head coach at Louisville. Is that right?
Yeah, Scott Satterfield. They're saying Wilkinson only won 47 in a row.
All right, yeah, won 47 in a row, and I want to say Bear Bryant's Kentucky team beat him. Is that right? Who snapped that?
I'm not seeing who beat him. Wilkinson ended coaching very young. His career record was unbelievable, 145 and 29.
Oh, he was a great God. That is unbelievable. He was a great coach.
I think Oklahoma had 2 long streaks, and
Coach
Bryant's Kentucky team beat them. Coach Bryant's team, I think, ended that 31-game streak.
I want to say the most Alabama ever won in a row was 31. I could be wrong there. But
that's right. That LSU broke it when Palmer was playing quarterback that day because Jay Barker got hurt.
Yeah. Okay, and
I didn't realize that he went on to be the head coach at the St. Louis Cardinals for like a couple seasons.
Oh yeah. Let me tell you this: one of the finest men ever to walk the sidewalks of the University of Alabama, but at the same time, the hardest man to officiate for. You talk to any officials, boy, he gave officials up and down. He won the official battle early. And when you do, it's a big advantage to you. Think about it. When he's giving that guy such a hard time, he's going to throw the flag for this guy, just to shut him up,
I knew Stallings' coach. I didn't know Bud Wilkinson was the head coach of Arizona. For St. Louis.
No, I did not know that. And let me tell you what he was famous for. Tell me what he was famous for, those Oklahoma teams. First of all, they were red and white. What was different about them than any other team?
I don't know.
All right, you check this out in your records. The rip-away jersey. Oklahoma had those rip-away jerseys before anybody did.
Oh, they did.
I liked, but some.
I thought that was more Barry Switzer.
No. It was started with Wilkinson, and then Texas wore the rip-away jerseys, and Alabama wore the rip-away jerseys with Johnny Musso. Johnny Musso's number was number 22, but if you didn't catch him early, he wouldn't have a jersey on. You know, they were thin jerseys like a T-shirt, and when you grab them, they rip away from them, and it was a big advantage, you know, for some of these guys. And but I think I'm right that Bud Wilkinson's teams were the first ones that started wearing those rip-away jerseys. And okay, we got that done. I want to mention the Red Box Bowl. Boy, I tell you, they come from everywhere, from Santa Clara. And Mike, you and I went to a football game in Santa Clara one time. Ladies and gentlemen,
we went to San Jose.
Oh, it was San Jose. Well, who had the terrible stadium though, Mike?
That was the San Jose State Spartans.
All right, that one. You remember that stadium they played in? You know.
Yeah, it had wooden bleachers.
I mean, you actually worried about getting splinters. I mean, it was an old stadium, and Troy played. Let's see, Eastern Illinois or
that was
Northern
Troy's
Illinois.
first ever bowl game, right?
Illinois.
That was Troy's first ever bowl game, and we.
I'll never forget. Troy got embarrassed with their alumni tent, because Troy had like the little bitty alumni tent. I mean, I don't know, maybe you could get like 30 people in it. Then we saw Northern Illinois, all these people from Chicago and Illinois, and their tent was about 50 yards wide.
And it was a driving rainstorm all day long, because we went out to the great golf course, and it was just pouring down rain out there. We couldn't get out of the car. And but this was the worst stadium, and I remember Troy took a 14-0 lead, if you remember, Mike, and never scored again after that. But we had a good time. We were staying in downtown San Francisco, Mike. At what hotel was that?
We were staying at the most beautiful hotel ever, this old Ritz-Carlton.
The Ritz-Carlton in downtown San Francisco.
Yeah, good for you.
Just so happened that one of my wife's cousin's daughter managed it.
Wow.
Had a lot to do with it. But you know the bad thing about San Francisco, and this is true, if you're not in good shape, you don't want to go to San Francisco, because you either got to walk uphill everywhere you go or downhill everywhere you go.
Yeah.
It's no even
Steep
ground.
hills too, right?
That's right.
But I hear it's one of the prettiest cities in the world.
My only regret there is we didn't go to Alcatraz. We rode on a few trolleys, and I know we went to the Golden Gate Bridge, and we went to the Redwood Forest, and went to Pebble Beach. But I wish I would have gone to Alcatraz.
Yeah, well, we saw it from distance, but we didn't go to it.
I've heard, what's that drive outside of San Francisco is supposedly the prettiest drive in America, is when you go up to Carmel. In that area, and
also it's got those giant trees that you can drive a car. You could carve out one of those trees and you could drive a car through it. You know, it's just amazing.
Yeah, we mentioned that. We went through some redwood trees and the sequoias and all that. Yeah, that's called the Pacific Highway. We took the Pacific Highway, but it was raining that day.
The Red Box Bowl is going to have Illinois 6-6 and California 7-3. Boy, everybody can be a member of the. It's just a shame we didn't make a bowl game because everybody else did. Miami Gardens, the Orange Bowl, at one time used to be the grand. They always call Rose Bowl the granddaddy of all, but the great bowl game every year was the Orange Bowl. For what reason?
Their halftime show.
The halftime show.
It was really good.
The fireworks. And let me tell you this: we have better fireworks at our stadium here in Troy than they do down. But at that time, that was when they first started bringing out fireworks, and they had a tremendous fireworks deal. But back then, they didn't know as much about them as they know now. Now even towns like Troy can have those kind of fireworks demonstrations.
I mean, Florida should be a 14-point favorite against Virginia at least.
No,
this is not a good matchup.
That's the easiest bowl game on the board I've seen so far. So we know that Florida's going to be 11-2. They're playing Virginia.
All right, your New Year's Eve games pit the Belt Bowl, Charlotte, North Carolina, Kentucky 7-5, and what is this? Virginia Tech. 8-4. Let me tell you this: I've never seen in a long, long time how a team could completely change their offense after the first 2 or 3 games and be so effective. Do you know that this Kentucky team is one of the top rushing teams in America now, Mike?
Oh, I've been talking about it for weeks. You know, I mean, they brought in Lynn Bolden, you know,
a wide receiver. Coffee, if there's a chance to get some.
They put in a quarterback, and basically they just, you know, ran him left, ran him right, ran him up the middle. I mean, the guy's just a phenomenal athlete, and nobody could tackle him. I mean, the guy put up 284 yards against Louisville. I mean,
yeah. Do you think we're going to see this out of Kentucky? You know, nobody else is really concentrating on rushing the football. Which team other than them?
I don't know. I mean, I think this guy's just like a David Palmer, you know, just kind of freakish athlete.
Look at here. And, have a good cup of coffee. Let's have a cup of Nescafe. Is that how that commercial went?
I don't remember. You know, I'm shocked, though. I'm shocked that Mark Stoops, who was the defense coordinator at Florida State under Jimbo, didn't leave Kentucky to take that Florida State job. Now, he must know something at Florida State that
he was offered it.
To be any part of it.
Unless he is.
I thought for sure he would be one of the top candidates. You know, I mean, I'm surprised that his name was not mentioned at Florida State.
Well, let me tell you what I think it is. He's so filthy rich. I think he got so much money on his buyout and all that. You know, he's still, you know, just filthy rich. Okay.
Let me interrupt y'all. Do we think that Bill Clark's staying at UAB now?
Oh, yeah.
It looks like he'll stay now.
And be glad he's got the job. But that final score was... Now, UAB got beat bad, didn't he?
Yeah, 49-6. But, you know, UAB pays him $1.6 million.
Yeah. And they'll be playing in that new stadium soon, too. That's going to make a big difference.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm worried about Troy's got to compete with them, and so I'd like to have them have some sorry coach.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, this is graduation week. The finals, most of the kids have already taken their finals, and it's time for them to take about a month off Christmas break. And I tell you, isn't it great to live in a wonderful town like we do with a university and, of course, providing so many great things. Of course, we're going to use the Claudia Crosby Theater this Friday night as the great voice of all times in Troy, Alabama, is going to do her thing.
You know what else is coming is on
she's going to be on our show,
is the Shebang Dance Review, and my daughter Maggie is now in a Shebang dancer. And
that's wonderful.
They have some big recital. I think it's on Saturday at the Claudia Crosby Theater.
Yeah, they have the great recital I'm all, the ballet, Mike.
The Nutcracker, I think.
The Nutcracker. And my daughter, Camille, when she was a kid, it was such a great thing to be a part of this Nutcracker. And she was one of the little girls underneath the skirt.
That's what my daughter is now.
So she came out from underneath the skirt. So and that production is well done. You know, there's somebody I hope is watching this morning. A dear person to me is Betsy Herlong Colquitt. She started dance. Well, Betty Lou Payne started dance, and Miss Thompson later on. Can you believe I can remember stuff like that?
No, of course I can remember.
But then came the great one, Betsy Herlong and Betsy Colquitt. And what a wonderful program she put on for such a long time. And then the young lady with Shebang came in and sort of took over that. But Betsy, we know and appreciate all of the great things you did for our young people. And
that's right.
Mike, how many times do you think she went to bat for kids over the years? You know,
it's one of those
people don't know that as much about her, but she went to bat for a lot of kids.
Fantastic.
That's going to be my worst nightmare one day when my girls actually start playing sports and doing dance and gymnastics and all this stuff. It's going to really ruin my life. I don't want to have to go to all this stuff.
Well, I do, and I'm a granddad. I hope I live to do it. I hope I live.
Let me tell you something. You know, my mom did it for no telling how many years with 3 boys. Just think of all the practices and games she took us to. Dad really wasn't into that stuff, so it was Mom that did it.
Yeah.
One time, by the time Bobby, the third one, got to playing Dixie Boys, he said there was some game over, and he went out in the outfield in Mom's car, and Mom was sitting in the driver's seat just snoring away, just sound asleep. You know,
oh boy! But
then I remember one game Dad did go to when I was in Dixie Majors, which was just for fun. Nobody took Dixie Majors that seriously. We played a game and we lost, and the manager, the coach of our team, is just talking to us for a long time after the game, like we've just lost in the playoffs or the World Series. And I hear my dad up on the hill at Charles Simpson's baseball stadium saying, "Let these kids go home."
Oh, yeah, exactly. I've had them to tell me that before, coaching kids, too. I've had parents go and say, "Hey, isn't it time to go home?"
I tell you what, Billy, I bet your dad was a coach's worst nightmare because he was one of the more intimidating figures in Troy, Alabama. I cannot imagine a conversation with a guy that, played at Alabama for Bear Bryant, was a great player like that. I mean, was that tough on you guys growing up with coaches? Knowing who your dad had played for?
Well, Dad was just the antithesis of the Little League dad. He didn't even force sports on us or take hardly any interest in it.
He really didn't, did he?
So, no, it wasn't. He didn't give any coaches a hard. I can remember that one time where he told the coach, "Come on, coach, it's 10 o'clock at night. It's a school night."
Yeah.
And I understood it.
Hey, well, let me just say this about him, Mike, that made him different than everybody else during this era. Now, they played both ways. Bill Rice was a starting defensive end and a starting offensive end. Ladies and gentlemen, it's complete to Bill Rice. It's going to be a foot race. 40, 30, 20. It's going to be run down at the 8-yard line.
That's about right.
Of Texas. And this is against Texas. I remember it as a kid.
Yeah.
Bill Rice from Troy. That's all I can remember.
It was the Blue Bonnet Bowl.
They were talking about him on national TV as the Blue Bonnet Bowl. And he got run down by one of those quarterbacks, Street, I think his name was.
I finally saw.
The last name of the guy was Street, and Street ran him down from behind.
James Street.
And Bobby Skelton always said, of course, Bobby Skelton would have been Rice, his best friends, and he played quarterback, one of the backup quarterback. He's the one that Coach Bryant said, "You'll never play another down for me."
He said, "We're going to give you one more chance."
and of course, he became one of the top officials of all time in football. College and pros.
It seems to me that they play guys both ways because back then they had about 150 players.
I know it, and didn't even have any scholarship limits either. And but Bobby Skelton used to always kid that he got run down by behind. From behind, and Alabama didn't score. They kicked the field goal, and the game ended up tied.
Here's what happened: is they
3-3, wasn't
it? Dad got them down to about the 7 or 6, and on that long pass play, and Alabama got it to the 1-yard line and tried to score. I think 2 plays in a row. One time they thought they had scored, and they didn't get in, and so the game ended up tied. And so
no playoffs.
And until that national championship game in 2009, Alabama had never beaten Texas. So I always thought, God, Dad, if you could have just scored that touchdown, at least Alabama would have one victory over. But I finally saw that play. I'd heard that because it was Dad's longest reception as a tight end.
Did you some yards?
He didn't catch many passes. And I've always heard that story. Oh, they ran him down, and I finally saw it, and they did run him down
with an angle.
The guy had an angle on him the whole time. So there's no.
Bill Rice, as big as he was. And I'm going to say this now, and he was 6'5", and he weighed 221, 219, and something like that. I mean, he was slim. What I'm saying, he had big old raised horse legs and could run. And I'll tell you how fast he was. Richard Williford, one of my closest friends on this earth, who's not with us anymore. That's Sonny Williford's first cousin, Richard, who was 2 years older than we were. He could fly. Now, he was about a 10-flat, 10-1. 100-yard dash guy. That was like a 9-9 guy, or something like that, who was real fast. Well, at practice one day, Coach Queen and I was there sitting up on the bank at the old high school, And he asked, and of course, Richard being my best friend, I really was conscious of this. Bill your daddy used to come here and work out prior to going
back to school.
Back to school. You know, the high school would have started earlier, and they practiced, and so he'd come out and run, during the practice. So you saw this giant guy with his red jersey on, and running up and down. So in a minute, Coach Queen called him over and said, "Rice, I want you to race Richard Williford." They raced. Of course, Richard was, like I said, was a 10-flat, 10-1 guy, and they were neck to neck.
Oh.
They were neck to neck. Your daddy at 6'5" or 6'6", weighed about 230 probably at the time, and running neck to neck with his little scat back from Troy High School.
Coach Bryant believed in quickness and speed, and those guys' teams were small by the standards back then and especially today, but I guess they were in great shape and they were quick and fast.
Exactly. And then, of course, Bill Rice, when he finally came back to his hometown, he had a great knowledge of Old Troy, and his knowledge of Old Troy led to him writing several books. I know one of them really stood out for a long time, and his love for Troy and
I'll tell you how that happened.
Was without any approach.
If you remember, he wrote a book called Trojan Influence, where he named the most influential people in the history of Troy. He wrote about a page about these people. You think about it, if you tell the story of the most influential people in Troy, you're really telling the...
Charles Henderson.
There you go. The man that brought the railroad to town was probably the most influential in Dad's...
Charles, yes, right. Douglas Edwards.
We had to learn all about Ann Love.
Yeah, Ann Love. The old cemetery off of North 3-Night Street, South 3-Night Street, that old cemetery has her where she's buried. And I was telling my wife this past weekend that I remember getting out of my car and walking through that graveyard one day. It's a beautiful old graveyard.
They made us go as kids.
Yeah.
At school, we had to go to her grave.
Ann Love, you're right.
Well, he wrote that book, and they printed 1,000, and it was a fundraiser for the sesquicentennial. Try to pronounce that one. Sesquicentennial. That's the 150th anniversary of Troy. So I think Troy became a city in 1842 or 3, so this would have been about 1993. Raised a lot of money for that committee. And then after he wrote that book, he said, well, I've done a lot of this research. I'll go ahead and write the official history of the city of Troy. And he was real influenced by Margaret Pace Farmer, who had done the history of Pike County.
Yeah.
And so Dad just kept it just on Troy. But why he did that influential book on Trojan influence, I brought back a book from the Charles Henderson School Library called The 100, which tried to name the 100 most influential people in the history of the world.
Uh-huh.
Now, how would you identify who was the most influential?
Yeah, I know it, yeah.
And Dad was, he loved that book and was intrigued by it. Because you can have great arguments. I mean, is Jesus ahead of Muhammad, or
oh boy,
or
Jesus was ahead of everybody.
Who influenced the most people?
Yeah.
And anyway, he took the idea. He stole the idea of that book to do the Trojan influence book.
And of course, the rest is history. And of course, a very smart man, Bill Rice. And of course, another thing he did, he became. He worked with the city for several years there, and he got involved in recycling, and he led Troy to to be known as one of the top recyclers in the country.
Well, Green Davis got him for that position. After he sold Chapman Oil, he was a gas guy.
Yeah, that's right.
Isn't that ironic that you go from being an oil guy?
Wouldn't you have liked it if he'd left that gas company to you?
I don't know. I mean, that stressed him out at the same time, so maybe. But it was he bought it from my grandfather, Hickey Chapman. But then he sold the business and needed a job, and Green Davis recommended him as the guy to start up Troy's curbside recycling program. And so he did learn a whole lot about recycling and environmentalism. Had a good and then he would go to the schools and preach it to the little fourth graders, and then they would take it home. And
no question about it. All right, on to finish this.
Daddy, how many Florida State fans will go out to Arizona for the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl?
I know, the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. Tony the Tiger, what is Tony the Tiger advertising?
I'd say about 1,000.
No, y'all got to know what Tony the Tiger is advertising, don't you?
Yeah,
Frosted Flakes.
Frosted Flakes.
Frosted Flakes. Do you even see Frosted Flakes anymore?
not like you used to. I used to love them.
I know.
Actually, that game is in El Paso, Texas.
I didn't know what's
Bowl matchups are just awful.
Well, let me ask you this: Florida State 6-6 and Arizona State 7-5. The coach at Florida State that took over for the fired coach, they ought to find some way to keep that guy because he did a great job of bringing
They
him
will.
back.
He's been on every staff ever. That's what he was on.
For 25 years.
I tell you what.
He was on the staff with Max, or he was a player for Max.
You want to keep him because he is really good for that program. No question about it.
Navy, Kansas State in the Liberty Bowl is not a bad game.
Yeah, my preacher, and we were talking about it yesterday at Calvary.
Good. I get to go to that one.
Mr. Lowry, Reverend Lowry, Max Lowry is a great guy. I just love him. And his grandson went to Kansas State, and he's got a Kansas State tag on the front end of his car. How many Kansas State tags do you see on your car? And, of course, they had a good year. They were a pretty good football team.
I think they're in the top 25, aren't they?
Yeah. Wyoming and Georgia State. Georgia State made it to the bowls, and, Mike, they were playing horrible down the stretch.
Well, their quarterback got hurt. We mentioned they probably played their best game against Troy.
Wouldn't you have loved to have played them without that great quarterback, man? Troy.
They beat Troy 52-31, and should have been, I think, 45-31. They're trying to run the clock out, and they went about 80 yards.
Oh yeah, we couldn't stop them, but they couldn't stop us either. But they had more than we did. All right,
Alamo Bowl will not be a bad game. Yeah. Utah against Texas. I wouldn't be surprised if Texas beats Utah.
Yeah. Back to Navy and back to Air Force. Of course, the Army was not as good this year, but it's amazing what those military. The only way the military schools can compete is to do something like run the wishbone and have a lot of what you call it, what is it?
They have the.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm saying that
a novelty offense, right?
Finesse is the word I was looking for. Finesse offense.
It's hard to prepare for it in a couple of practices.
And they were both with 9-2. That was pretty good for those two teams.
All the service academies run the option. But, none of them run the straight wishbone anymore.
You notice when Troy won the national championships in 84 and 87, they ran no little wishbone offenses.
Just like Charles Simpson in 1980.
That's right, no question.
But people do not run the wishbone proper. They have these little flankers that are behind the tight ends, but nobody runs the wishbone. I'd like to see somebody.
They're in the double wing, what they are.
The double wing, yeah.
And then they run that option off of that.
I was a wishbone quarterback. I can still remember all the plays and.
Yeah, just read. Hey, read it like here. Look here. Read it like here. Bring it back, and then go like this.
I couldn't do it. I mean, to make that quick read, you're supposed to read the defensive tackle first on the fullback give, and then if that defensive end or defensive tackle crashes down on the fullback, you pull it. Then you read the defensive end.
Well,
the defensive end goes outside. You cut up and keep it. If he doesn't, if he takes the quarterback, you pitch it.
All right, I got it on my mind. The guy that started.
Try being an offensive lineman. You got to have your steps, and then you got to pull, and you got to. I mean, playing for Jeffcoat. I mean, you played quarterback and then the offensive lineman. I mean, it all had to be in sync, man. He was the most. He was one of the biggest wishbone guys there was, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a very good high school coach. Well, let me just say this: Emory Ballard, an assistant coach at Texas, later on went on to Mississippi State. But Emory Ballard is known as the founder of the wishbone offense.
Yeah.
Under Darrell Royal at Texas. I went to the Alabama-Texas game that year, and they had a running back named Ernie Coy. And that was the game in 1965 where they had already named Alabama national champion before the bowl games. They used to do that. You remember that?
Yeah.
And then Namath was
Helped
on
Alabama out that year.
on the 1 yard line as the game ended on the 1 yard line, and Tommy Novus, the great linebacker at Texas, shot the gap and said they stopped Namath at the goal line and won the game. And all I heard after that was the eyes of Texas are upon you. My high school team went to that game.
Namath didn't start that game, did he?
No, he didn't. He came in because he'd been hurt.
So he was kind of like Tua. He was playing.
Wayne Trimble was his wide receiver and made so many good plays. But you know who the quarterback on that team was the great one, the later on coach at Vanderbilt, Steve Sloan. Steve Sloan was a backup quarterback and played in that game. And I think he might have played in the Sugar Bowl the year before.
And they won it without Namath.
When you give somebody a national championship, I mean, how can you expect these guys to get up? I mean, they've already won a national championship.
That's right. And, of course, that was a heartbreaker for Alabama, losing right at the 1 yard line. A lot of people said if they had the film replay, they probably would have scored, but back then they didn't have the replay. Real quick, let's go down the line. The Alamo Bowls, this game right here. It is just so many games. It's pitiful.
Oh, can you imagine as a kid, how many bowl games were there when we were kids? Maybe 8 at the most, 10?
Yeah, the Gator Bowl, the Orange Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, and the Cotton. What?
41 bowl games.
Yeah.
I mean, you had bowls like the Liberty Bowl came on, then you had the Bluebonnet Bowl, the Gator Bowl, the Peach Bowl came around.
And the Toilet Bowl, some people went to the Toilet Bowl, is that right? I'm joking.
I'll say this. Vegas and ESPN love these bowl games.
ESPN owns most every one of them.
Yeah, it's a business.
It keeps, Texas 7-5 and Utah 11-2. I bet you Texas beats Utah in this game. What do you think?
The powerful Utah that's ranked ahead of Alabama.
Okay.
I mean, Texas definitely had a down year, though.
But it will be a New Year's Eve game. Texas and Utah playing a New Year's Eve game. That's a believe it or not.
And they're playing in Texas, which helps.
Yeah. And now on Wednesday, January the 1st, here's your first of your January 1st bowl games, and that will pit Michigan against Alabama at noon. Michigan 9-3, Alabama 10-2. This is from Orlando, Florida, the Citrus Bowl. Not a bad trip down
What's
there.
the line on that one? Do they got lines yet, Michael?
I don't think so.
I haven't seen lines yet, but I was reading the other day, the all-time series is 2-2. Of course, the last time they played, Alabama opened the season against Michigan, beat them 41-14. But one of those losses, Dad, you were at.
Oh, that game.
Worst losses Alabama's ever had. I think in double overtime, Ryan Flugner, the amazing field goal kicker at Alabama, missed the extra point.
The final score was 28-27. I want to say it was 28-27, and the quarterback for Michigan happened to be a guy named Tom Brady.
That's right. I remember it well.
And and you know what? We paid top dollar downtown for tickets, maybe $100 a piece. When we got there, they were giving away tickets.
Yeah, it wasn't sold out.
We got there.
You know who played in that game for Alabama? And there was one of the captains for Alabama?
Marvin Barron?
No, Cornelius Griffin.
Cornelius Griffin, okay, yeah.
He was a great defensive player on that.
That's Sean Alexander. That's the Bows' SEC championship team. And before the game, Chris Samuels, so this tells you, like, even way back then, guys sat out bowl games, had a minor injury. It was Alvin Trophy winner offensive tackle. He decides to not play at the last minute, and of course the Alabama's running tag with Sean Alexander was phenomenal. So that was a big factor in that game. I remember Samuel set out. I never felt the same about Samuels after that.
And you know who handled his money, don't you? Chris Cole. Okay, Outback Bowl from Tampa, Minnesota. See, this is what I don't like. Alabama and Auburn are playing at the same time. They're both playing at noon on January the 1st. Auburn's going to be at the Outback Bowl. They'll be giving away free steaks at that game.
Bloomin' onions. Bloomin'
onions. They're going to give away bloomin' onions at the door. Minnesota 10-2 and Auburn 9-3. Auburn's hungry. They'll win that one.
Auburn's going to finish with the same record
Auburn's
as Alabama.
going to win the football game. Wherever it is, they're going to win the football
Auburn's
game.
going to finish 10-3, and Alabama's going to finish 10-3.
Oregon-Wisconsin will be a decent game. Georgia-Baylor, I think, will be a really good game. I think Baylor's a lot better than people think.
They sure are.
If their quarterback comes back. But after that, Dak, can you believe if Troy somehow would have played in Mobile, They would have been the last bowl game of the season before the national championship.
Boy, which would have been extremely good exposure. Wouldn't that have been great?
The Mobile Bowl is now January the 6th.
Golly.
6th is the Mobile Bowl. Louisiana Lafayette against Miami, Ohio.
Isn't that amazing? And Louisiana Lafayette against Miami, Ohio. Lafayette will kill them, I think. Of course, looking at the other games real quickly, you got the Gator Bowl, Indiana and Tennessee. In the Gator Bowl, that's a good bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
The Idaho Potato Bowl, Ohio against Nevada. The Fort Worth Bowl on January the 4th pits Southern Miss and Tulane. And Monday, January the 6th, you got the Lincoln Tree Bowl, whatever that is. That's the one. So Mobile finally is going to be able to hold on to their bowl game. They were about to lose it. And what is this Linden Tree Bowl? I don't know where that is, but that's going to sponsor it.
It was the Dollar General Bowl, but I guess now it's the Linden Tree Bowl.
Yeah. And the college football championship game, of course, the Peach Bowl winner is on the 7th.
The only one you didn't mention is Tennessee will play Indiana in the Gator Bowl.
I did mention it. You were wrong, Mike. Did I mention it?
So Tennessee, Indiana will be a pretty good game.
Yeah,
the national championship game is in New Orleans, I think I just read. So who do you think, who's going to be favored in that game?
The Senior Bowl will end it all the 25th, and the
well, let's talk about this, Mike, before we run.
Yeah.
LSU will beat Oklahoma in Atlanta by three touchdowns. Then they'll go to the national championship game in New Orleans, where LSU's going to have 80% of the crowd.
That's right.
Probably playing Clemson. So if I were a betting man, I would like LSU very strongly now.
Yeah, that's our harp going off. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed our show. And we'll see you tomorrow morning.
That's my phone.
And early for Today in L.A. Have a great one.
Who's calling me? The President Trump's calling me.